Hello, Curious, and welcome back. We all surely remember the now infamous interview that Princess Diana had given to Martin Bashir for the BBC. The situation was a pivotal moment in the princess's life and one that resonates with us to this day. But now there is much more behind that event, not just for her, but for the entire royal family. So after all of this time, what discoveries were made regarding the interview? Was Lady Diana blatantly set up by the company and by Bashir himself? What is behind the trap that was set for Lady Di? And why does Harry think that this is the reason behind her tragic passing? What are Prince William and Harry's heartbreaking statements with regards to what was said in the investigation? Why does Charles Spencer, Diana's brother, have social media in an outcry? And why does it involve William's children? Stay with us until the very end to find out the recent developments on this story, but before we continue, don't forget to turn on the notifications and subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our future videos. Let's get right to the point with the situation that has once again put the late Princess Diana on everyone's lips, and not to mention the entire royal family. Prince William has blamed the BBC of forging documents to get the interview in which they shamelessly deceived his mother, and that also fed her into the paranoia, worsened her mental health, and of course attributed to his parents' divorce, though it is worth pointing out that they were separated since 1992. All of this was said following an investigation that the princes themselves and Earl Spencer ordered towards that Lady Di interview, and thanks to it, it was found that the BBC had broken their guidelines to carry out the approach to the interview that would change the life of the princess. And it is no secret anymore that it had left her vulnerable, since after the interview, her relationship with Prince Charles had deteriorated, though not the romantic one at this point, and also the one with the rest of the royal family, especially Queen Elizabeth II. Prince William had also said that he was very saddened that his mother never found out that she had been deceived and used, and as he has been inclined to comment about it, he has said that it was a major contribution of worsening of my parents' relationship and has since hurt countless people. But what has devastated him the most is that if the BBC had properly investigated the complaints and concerns first raised in 1995, his mother would have known that it was created not only by a dishonest journalist, but also by the BBC leader who looked the other way instead of asking questions. The Metropolitan Police said that they are still evaluating the new findings of that investigation after previously leaning against a criminal investigation. However, the words that came out of Prince Harry's own mouth went a little further than the statements made by his brother, as he in turn had blamed the toxic media culture for his mother's passing, and he said the ripple effect of the culture of exploitation and unethical practices ultimately led to the end of her life. And now, curious with this main topic, we could understand a little better Harry's decision to leave the royal family, seeing that his wife Meghan Markle was being exposed to the same media scrutiny. Though if you haven't seen the infamous interview this couple did with Oprah, be sure to check out our previous video, but for now, make sure you stay with us to find out if the speculation of the bribery of Diana's brother was real. The younger son of Diana went on to say that his concerns extend the fact that such practices are still widespread today, and highlighting that the situation is bigger than a media, a network, or a publication. And he also went on to add that our mother lost her life because of this, and nothing has changed. By protecting her legacy, we protect everyone and uphold the dignity which she lived her life. For this scandalous and very serious situation, the BBC has written to apologize to both Harry and William, as well as Prince Charles and the brother of Lady Di. Matt Weisler, the graphic designer who first raised concerns about the documents used to secure the interview with Princess Diana, did so after the BBC denied him the job. And speaking with Radio 4, he had said that he too got sent an apology, but that it was too little too late. Do you, Curious, think that a letter of apology to the royal family is enough for all the damage that they had caused the entire family? But that wasn't enough criticism. Prince Harry had also condemned Lord Hall, who ran the investigation, as well as the BBC's then Director General Lord Britt, for not apologizing to him in person. He effectively accused the BBC of driving his parents to finalize their divorce and to participate in the events that had led to his mother's passing. In this case, of course, the younger prince shows a stronger resentment towards the whole situation. Since his departure from the royal household, he has spoken uncensored about various but difficult topics of which the media doubt that William, in his position as heir to the throne, can give statements that are just as controversial. But it's not that he does not say anything about it at all. In fact, he has sent a strong message, but carrying on from before, it has been Harry who has been so angry with the media, whereas William seems to have in one way have made peace with it. As Harry launched a visceral attack on BBC, it is a sign of his deep feelings of pain and dismay. With regards to the independent independent inquiry, it yielded lurid results, with now retired Judge Lord Dyson finding that the interviewer, Martin Bashir, acted deceitfully and falsified documents to obtain the interview. At the meeting 96, which was led by the then Director of News and Current Affairs, Lord Hall, who has been exposed along with the interviewer, Lord Dyson had discovered that Bashir had tricked Earl Spencer into introducing the journalist to his sister by showing him forged bank statements that falsely suggested that people were being paid to keep the princess under surveillance. And if you want to know more about the Spencers who had remained on the sidelines to this day, we recommend that you check out our previous video by clicking on the link above. Although Charles had broken his silence and intertwined this interview with his sister's passing, so make sure you stick with us to the very end to find out his most recent statements. While Prince William had called that the interview had to have influenced how his mother had answered and that it should have never been rebroadcast, there were many other people who wanted their thoughts to be heard, and Justice Secretary Robert Buckland referred to the evidence obtained as devastating and considered that the BBC and media in general should be reformed. This investigation in itself was started after Earl Spencer made public allegations about how the interview was obtained. So in a few words, the findings had shown that Bashir had seriously violated the BBC rules by using fake bank statements that helped him gain the trust of Charles Spencer, and as we said before, they simply showed fake bank transactions that were supposed to suggest that the security services were harassing Diana and that the two senior aides were being paid to tell stories about her. The BBC had said that the investigation had found that Martin showed the forged documents to Lady Di's brother, and once again he gained his trust enough to be introduced to Diana, and he had access to the interview. Not to mention that as the media interest in the interview increased, the BBC had covered up what the corporate heads of course knew. Lord Dyson had spoken more on the situation and said that the broadcasting company did not meet the highest standards of integrity and transparency that are its hallmark. However, the most polemic thing in this addition to the shocking statements of the princes was yet to come. Recently, Earl Spencer was in the media eye as well, especially after he made declarations in a new BBC Panorama documentary, and in it he had said, "Well, the irony is that I met Martin Bashir on August 31st, 1995, because exactly 2 years later she died, and I do draw a line between the two events." He went on to say that for him, this situation is quite clear because since he introduced Bashir to Diana and in 1995, and in his own words, he went on to add that everyone was going to cease to be trusted, and I think Diana lost confidence in really key people. And at this point, it is essential to mention that Patrick Jephson, Diana's former private secretary, said that the interview destroyed the remaining links with Buckingham Palace and left the princess vulnerable to people who did not have their best interests at heart. And it is worth mentioning that Princess Diana, far from being a public figure, was the first member of the royal family who was a symbol of struggle and justice, as well as being involved in controversial issues of social interest, of improvement in the world, where many powerful people could have been involved, such as the case of her last charitable contribution regarding the mining of Angola. Those weapons were widely used in conflicts, and many of those failed to explode during the wars that continued to end lives and maim those who stepped on them without knowing it, and undoubtedly controversial issues for the governments of the people involved, in which just one example of how Princess may have had many people who were not 100% sympathetic to her causes. Earl Spencer, who had recently trended on Twitter by showing a photograph of him and Diana as children, which had followers tearing up and commenting how similar they looked to William's children, and that Princess Diana would have made an exceptional grandmother, is still a desperate fight to clear his name over being directly implicated in bribes to gain access to Lady Di, in his words stating, "For 25 years I've been waiting for people to stop calling me a forger and a leaker." Demanding the BBC to apologize to him in person, he said, "No one has come forward. It's weak, calculating, and honestly after 25 years, what they're doing is disgusting to this day." So curious, do you think the BBC is still considered a reliable news outlet? The interview has marked many firsts for the royals. The iconic line, "There were 3 of us in this marriage," referring to her husband's affair with Camilla Parker Bowles, has made a lot of noise even to this day, in addition to revealing intimacy problems with Charles, where she had said that a decade of not even touching each other had marked this interview as the first time someone had spoken openly about the life in the royal family, and viewers saw her talk about her unhappy marriage to Prince Charles, her personal affairs, and her eating disorders. And although after the evidence was found, what did the BBC management explicitly tell Prince Charles in their letter? Bashir? Stay with us to find out. For his part, Bashir is one of UK's most famous journalists and was also widely publicized for his iconic 2003 interview with the King of Pop, Michael Jackson. And although the BBC in this case, represented by Lord Hall, said that it was wrong to give Bashir the benefit of the doubt, commenting on the case, the BBC's current Director General, Tim Davies, said, although the report states that Diana, Princess of Wales, was interested in the idea of an interview with the BBC, it is clear that the process for securing the interview fell far short of what the public has the right to expect. Tim Davies sent a letter directly to the Prince of Wales in which he simply apologized for Bashir's shocking and false claims about the prince, members of his staff, and other members of the royal family involved. And according to the BBC News' own website, the letter contains the company's acceptance that Bashir made the claims with the intention of playing on the princess's fears in order to arouse her interest in him, and without concern for the impact on those that he was slandering. Although at this point, if you're wondering, well, what does Martin Bashir have to say about the actions that could definitely have serious consequences for him and that we're about to tell you? In short, he has spoken out on the matter, and in fact, he has apologized for the false statements, but he also said that he defended the evidence that he gave 25 years ago, and now much more strongly, stating that the bank statements had nothing to do with Diana's decision to participate in the interview. With all of this, Prince Harry had stated, "For those who have taken some form of responsibility, thank you for owning it. That is the first step towards justice and truth. What concerns me deeply, however, is that practices like these, and even worse, are still widespread today. And then and now it is bigger than one medium, one network, and one publication." So curious, do you really believe that this interview was the cause of Princess Diana's passing, as Harry points out? Do you remember what Earl Spencer's words were to the royal family on the day of Princess Diana's funeral? Do you think this could be a big step in the breach that has existed regarding Princess Diana's car crash and finally find the perpetrator? Is there any reality that the royal family and the royal household servants were involved in persuading the princess? Let us know your thoughts in this situation in the comments below, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.